Our guest this evening is Miss Misha Dameron, a very impressive young lady who's got a lot of things going on family-wise, business-wise, and just tenacious. So we'll be talking to her today. Got a great attitude. She's like me. Don't make excuses for not achieving anything. Don't blame anybody else. And how unfair the world is and all that crap. So we'll have her on this evening. But first, hoping all of you had a great Thanksgiving. We had our usual Thanksgiving with my son and his family, my little grandson, and that's always a great day. So hope everybody Thanksgiving was good. Got up the morning after Thanksgiving, as a matter of fact, I went out to breakfast with my podcast team at the Eat County Light. Good Day Cafe in Golden Valley here in Minnesota. Had the best corned beef hash I've ever had, and I've had it in a lot of places, including New York City, which should be the mecca of corned beef hash. But we had a good time there. By the way, people, sometimes in life things are just not meant to happen. And it took me a long time before that lesson sank into me. I refuse to accept that. Where I'm going to is that part 2 of our interview with Ramon Nicholson may have to be scrapped because we just have a time connecting. And so what I think I'm going to do here today is just wrap that whole thing up about the criminal justice system, and then we will bring on Misha, our guest. Now, criminal justice system pet peeve of mine. Be very quickly here. My wife and I went out to dinner with one of my co-workers and her husband, who at the time was, I think he was head of the National Association of Defense Lawyers or Attorneys or whatever. And we just got chatting. You know, I've always been interested in the criminal justice system. Unfortunately, as a young black male, I had some experience with it. Nothing serious. But I was just flabbergasted when he could not, as a defense attorney, think of any improvements that needs to be made. He was totally happy with it. And, you know, it's hard to improve something that needs to be improved if you don't think it needs to be improved. And that's where we are in a lot of our institutions today, the court system, the public education system. And what people try to do is use word games to redefine the problem, make it sound less. Long story short there, he and I got to talking. So I'm going to give you my suggestions. And keep in mind, I'm not a subject matter expert. I read a lot about things. What needs to be done in the criminal justice system. By the way, Barry Scheck, who was the O.J. Simpson lawyer, DNA expert, has a project called the Innocent Project, and I think to date they've discovered at least 400 people who were either on death row or had been given life sentences or otherwise imprisonment falsely. And that's only a small sampling, by the way. But last I saw, I think it was like 30-some% of the cases they looked at, they found out people had been wrongly convicted. Now, you would think that people in charge of that criminal justice system, the last thing they would want to do is put an innocent person to death, put an innocent person in prison for the rest of their lives. And, you know, I'm on that philosophy. I'd rather 10 guilty people go free than to imprison or bring capital punishment upon one innocent person. That's just me. That's one thing about criminals. Normally, they continue to commit crime, and sooner or later they'll get caught. And so, long story short, these are some of my suggestions. I hinted at one. First of all, this whole thing of the public defender's office is kind of a joke. That's just me. And people in the criminal justice system, you can call and tell me why I'm wrong, and I'll be ready for you, by the way. It's a joke. Justice is like a lot of other things in America, in any capitalist country, any country, period. It's like a commodity. The more money you have, the more justice you can buy. And so it's not coincidental. You hardly ever see rich people going to jail. That's not that they are just less criminal, but the type of crimes they commit probably are less visible. And so, if when people are given a criminal defense attorney, they're basically uh, fighting with one arm behind their back against a powerful federal government or government state or local government organization. And if you read up on the history of the Constitution, our founding fathers in the states who had to ratify the Constitution was very, very concerned about government power. And we as American citizens who, I don't know, we don't study history no more, we don't study civics no more, we seem to have forgotten that concern. There's a lot of things that went in the Constitution that dealt specifically with the real threat, which is about to come true, of the federal government just getting out of hand. And so that's why they put the Bill of Rights in there. So I think one thing, and it's unrealistic, but this is the ideal goal, every defendant should have a team like O.J. Simpson. Because the government, I mean, you're really outmanned and outgunned in court if you're going up against the government who have access to all kinds of resources. And one thing that O.J. Simpson team showed is that if you got talent on your side legally, you can beat the government. And by the way, I've been upfront about this. And I thought O.J. did it. I think he did it. But I think the jury's verdict was correct because I watched the trial, and what they report on the news was not really what was going on in the courtroom. And so, first thing, great legal defense, I think defendants need. The second thing is the presumption of innocence. And if there's anything more disturbing to me as a person who understands all the thoughts that went into protecting us private citizen from an abusive, overreaching, power-hungry federal government, and don't you kid yourself, that phrase that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. There's a lot of truth in that. And I don't care how nice the person is or how nice they appear. And that's what I seen going on here. Now, but the presumption of innocence, look, it's very key. It's very disturbing to me. And you know, I'm not going to do it justice. When all they have to do is arrest someone and accuse them of it. And the general public going to automatically assume that they're guilty. And I've seen that in a lot of recent cases, and it's just been really, really disturbing. In fact, I think jurors should be given an orientation on the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and behind it. I think it should also include the unreliability, some information on the unreliability of our witnesses and testimony. So I would make sure the jurors have been given a fundamental set of information in an orientation session that would make them better aware of their roles in the background of our criminal justice system and their responsibility. The interviews. Now, look, and I heard this a lot. A lot of people, I'm not sure it's most, they just cannot understand how an innocent person would confess to a crime they didn't commit. Well, and once again, anybody out there who want to challenge what I'm saying, I welcome it. People don't understand human psychology. They don't understand interrogation methods. I've seen people confess after being interrogated for 8 hours without sleep. And sleep deprivation is one of the ways that they do it. So what I'm suggesting, all interrogations should be taped, and they might be, but just as importantly, some human psychology organization or a set of subject matter experts should get together and develop a set of ground rules for these interrogations. Because otherwise, you're going to be sending other people to prison because they've been put under a lot of pressure to confess. And I think that most of the time that I've heard people say the reason they confess to something they didn't do because they was just tired and they just was worn down, and they was at the point that they were willing to do or say anything just to get the heck out of there. So that's one thing. And I guess one other thing, and this is all on the criminal justice system reform, you get a lot of, and by the way, back to the eyewitness, I think the Innocent Project found out a lot of people were innocently, incorrectly found guilty because of eyewitness. That was wrong. And so I want to stress that. And then there's the cellmate confessions. I mean, y'all always get this case where, oh, this guy was in the cell with this guy, and he confessed to him. Look, I don't like that. Just like you can put a wire on somebody to get the confession on audio tape, I think the criminal justice system should require the government to get that confession on an audio tape before they come in and use it. Because you got his cellmate is just trying to get out of jail. He'll say do anything. And trust me, there is some corruption in the system, in the district attorney office, police, and everything else. And it's sad that we assume that the system is perfect. And I'm wrapping it up here. The other thing that the American criminal justice system does not do, generally speaking, when you appeal your case, it's hard to bring in new exonerating evidence. And I just remember when they was having court over in Australia for the Olympic athlete that was found guilty of killing his girlfriend. The Australian court actually lets you bring forth new evidence. I think I remember that correctly. So I think our court should consider that, especially if it's significant. If it's significant. Then finally, and it's kind of a small thing. Final number one. But the sentences, a lot of times it could depend on what judge you get, whether he or she had a fight with their spouse that morning or whatever, the amount of years that you get. And I'd like to see if we can come up with some kind of way of standardizing that. And I don't know about you. I've seen cases where murderers get 2 or 3 years, and then a robbery kind of suspect guilty of robbery get 30 years. Heck, Plexico Burress, the wide receiver for the Steelers, got 2 years for shooting himself in the hip. And I know people can argue the logic there. So those are the type of things I see with the criminal justice system that the people out there need to fix. But it's not going to get fixed because it's not impacting the people that have clout in this society. And it's kind of sad. And once again, that's just what I was going to recommend. And talking to Ramon, who has alleged that he spent 15 years in prison for a crime that he didn't commit. And to be honest with you, a lot of people have been asking me, how do we know? All I can say, given the delay in the second interview, is that he told me a story, and I tended to believe him. But here's the thing. Even if his story wasn't true, to see someone who has spent 15 years in one of the worst prison, in the worst prison in the state of Ohio, and not get broken by it, and not be broken, to come out with a still positive attitude on life, at least from an outward appearance, and still have goals and dreams, and who end up getting married and starting to raise a family, buying a house out in the suburb, working every day. That's admirable to me. And I was hoping we could wrap up that story. So that's all I have to say on the criminal justice system. We will have our guests coming up here shortly. So stay tuned and join us. In the meantime, go out to LacyJohnson.com and click the subscribe button and the notification button so you can get notification of new content. Click the likes. And we're going to keep working here to get better at what we do, and we want you to grow with us. So stay tuned. Misha is coming up shortly. Thanks.
To your question, yes, it started out with my hair company. My hair company is what led me into making a little bit of profit that led me into being able to open up Airbnbs. So I opened up my first one. A month later, I opened up a second. A month later,
Hold on one sec. Are we going right? We live, right? Okay, good. I'm sorry about that. He's gonna cut it. He's my editor too. Okay.
oh, no,
Okay.
you're
Uh-huh.
fine. And so a month later, I opened up two more. And before you know it, I was up to 4 units within pretty much my first 4 or 5 months of business. And it was pretty lucrative. And it was also very costly. So I ended up taking out my 401k and I retired myself,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I from my corporate job,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I was able to fund the rest of my business. And at that point I was a little strung for time, so I decided to open up my own cleaning company in order to help me out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you get tax purposes and I
Mm-hmm.
needed employees and all of that great jazz.
Mm-hmm.
So that led me to Luxury Key Cleaning Company. Everything is under the same umbrella, so you'll probably hear Luxury Key a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read The Rich Dad Poor Dad for like the fifth time in my life as on my entrepreneur journey. And I wanted to make sure that I turned all of my liabilities into assets. And at that time, my car, it's an Infinity SUV. And it was one of those things where it was definitely, I realized, even though it was the car of my dreams and it was so gorgeous and beautiful, it was actually a liability. It
Mm-hmm.
was not an asset. So, in order to turn all of my assets, all my liabilities into assets to become totally financially free, I started my car rental company, which is Luxury Key Transportation, and added another vehicle and another vehicle. And that expand into the Airbnb industry because now when people rent my Airbnbs, I offer that service to them as well. I also do corporate leasing. So when I lease long term to people, 6 or 7 months, I do offer them my cleaning company to clean the apartment consistently. And I also, which is an additional service, and then I also offer my rental cars, which is another perk to renting with me. So that's kind of how I got started there. And then I always had like cool names for my Airbnbs, with color schemes, and a lot of people always enjoyed them, and they always asked, oh my god, who decorated? And of course it was me. And so that led into Luxury Key Design, which is when I go and I furnish and decorate individuals' homes or their Airbnbs for them. So that led into my decor business. And of course, you posting all of this great success on social media, it only creates one thing, uh, viewers, right?
Uh-huh.
Viewers, people that are inspired. And that led into Keys and Deeds University. Keys and Deeds University is basically my mentorship program where I mentorship other individuals into the business of short term rentals, Airbnbs, car rentals, basically entrepreneurship, serial entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was very, very overwhelming and just a blessing at the same time. I posted that Keys and Deeds University was open for business. I went to sleep. I woke up pretty much a day and a half later, checked my mail, and I had about 28 students in my inbox.
Wow.
So for 6 months of my life, I was doing probably about 12 Zoom meetings every single day. I was on the phone constantly emails, constantly updates. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
to say the least.
Uh-huh.
Because not only was I running all of my businesses, I was also now mentoring other people into the business. And as you know, with new entrepreneurs, new people, they need so much guidance and so much care and so much attention. They have so many questions,
Mm-hmm.
and you just divide that times 10. Mind you, at that time, I had no ebook, I had no contracts, I had nothing written down. It was just like, I want to help other people because I was getting so many inquiries and so many questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I had decided to do. But I didn't think I was going to get that much traction, to be honest. And so that's how Keys and Deeds University was indeed born. And then, of course, with my Airbnb, so many people was coming in for, let's say, special occasions. And as you know, I am a certified chef. And so people wanted personal chefs and they wanted, Bali baths and all of these great things. And one young lady just happened, well, she was very, very well off. And she was just like, in order to make this legitimate, you should actually go get your event and wedding planning license so that you can host all of these great things. And I'm just like, that is great, but I don't think I have the time. But I found this amazing program at UTA, which I was able to join and met some amazing, amazing people. Some of them became my business partners. My professor is just outstanding. We are under the umbrella of David Tuchera and Kevin Lee, which, if nobody knows who they are the largest wedding planners in the country, event and wedding planners in the country. They did Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie's wedding.
Hmm.
So we have the opportunity to work with them and do great business with them out in California and all over the world, actually. So that was a pleasure. So that's where I became a certified event and wedding planner. And so now when people, and I'm also an officiant. So if you're getting married and I have to do anything of that sort, I got you. Okay. When it comes to catering, when it comes to Bali baths, when it comes to a personal chef. So, and as you know, I have a mentor. She's actually in Minnesota. And she said, Misha, if you're not certified, it's not solidified. And that stuck with me. So it really carried me over into one, yes, I can do it, but I need to make sure that I have paper and documents to back it up
Hmm.
so that I'm not questioned,
Right,
right?
right. Uh-huh.
So that's where it's led. And now I'm just living my best life. And my main goal now is to just reach back and help other young entrepreneurs that wants to come into the business and give back to my community. And of course, educating my kids and taking my kids under my wing and doing the exact same thing with them as well. Teaching them things that we was not taught as young adults and kids. So that's where I'm at now.
Wow. I'm beginning to feel like I need to take some notes here and draw some diagrams to keep track of all this stuff. Uh, but you're going to help me out as we go through this. Uh, a,
Absolutely.
a, a couple of things. I got the same type of personality, and people get on me all the time. I'm trying to do too many things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it can be challenging and overwhelming. But to me, there's two things about having a lot of balls in there at one time. Uh, the first part is you got a lot of people you have to communicate with. At least that was my, and get back to it a timely fashion. That's always been the challenge. Uh, and, and it's almost communication is almost always more time and patience and effort than you ever think, and how things get communicated miscommunicated. So that's my challenge in juggling. But I love not having time in between stuff. Uh, I remember one company I worked for, they told me I should set aside 25% of my time for the unexpected. Now, that sounded crazy to me. Uh, from a business perspective, I was like, wait a minute. That sounds like for every people you hire one person whose job title is just in case something comes up. And that just didn't seem, a good business model for me. So I'm not in the favor of setting aside time and things like that. And plus, my time, I paid my dues in the corporate world during some tough times. And you have a totally different look on things than people do today. It's like people who've been through the depression. They got a totally different look on life than you do. And so a lot of time my
Mhm.
attention comes before you haven't been through what I've been through, and people don't quite understand. So that's one thing about keeping so many things going. But the other thing is I couldn't afford any time off. It takes you, well, I could afford some time off, but it'll take you a while to get caught up if you ever fall behind. So, but I really admire what you're doing. Let's go back a little, because you've been saying a lot of things, and one of my favorite poetic lines is the father is the child is the father of the man, or the child is the father of the woman, which says that who we are today started when we were children. And so there's a lot of things you've talked about that makes me curious about how you got to be so all encompassing and focused and energetic and doing all these things. And every time I think about some business adventure you started, I'm like, boy, that's some extra work there, and there's people and resources and a lot of stuff that goes into that. So let's go back a little bit. I understand you're originally from Minnesota, the Twin Cities area. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. So I was actually born in Chicago,
Okay.
and my mother relocated to Minnesota when I was 4 years old. So I've been in Minnesota since I was 4, all the way up until I was 27.
Okay. What brought you here from Chicago? Just better life and change of pace, or
Well, my mother is deceased. She passed away in January 2020.
oh wow,
And I guess I've never asked her that question, but I'm pretty sure it was for a better life.
yeah, yeah. And
Yes.
so you went to high school here in Minnesota, and
Yes, I actually went to North High School.
oh
Yes, Polars, woo
yeah,
woo. So I actually went to North High School for my freshman year, and then my mom and my stepdad relocated to St. Paul. So I ended up finishing high school at Humboldt High School in West St. Paul.
okay. I'm a big booster of North High School. I used to be on their site council and on their STEM board of advisory, and I'm just a diehard supporter of that. So it's great to hear that. Then you go off to college somewhere. I think I saw it in here somewhere. Where did you go off? Where did you go to college? Oh, you at UT Arlington now, but
Yes.
but
I've been to lots of colleges, but I started my college career at St. Olave when I was still in high school. That was a pleasure. That actually catapulted me into probably the most critical part of my life, because from the time I was 11, well, I want to say from the time I was 13 until the time I was 18,
mhm.
I played sports year round. I worked, and I mean like worked, like
Uh-huh.
a real job. And I also went to college during the summer times every year through high school. So every year, my high school consists of going to school, playing sports, and working. And then in the summertime, I attended St. Olaf Upper Bound College program where we actually accrue college credits during the summertime. And then I would work on the weekends in the summer to, of course, have funds. My mother had 6 kids. So there was not always funds available, right? We want to look fly. We want to have our hair done. We want the latest clothes. And I knew at a very early age that the only way I was going to address the way I wanted to be addressed is to make money
Wow.
to
Uh-huh.
afford the things that I wanted. So I learned at a very early age, one, time management, two, that you have to work for what you want, and three, the odds are not stacked against you.
Right. Right.
You are only stacked against yourself.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
My mother was a single mom up until I was 14 years old, till she married my stepdad. So I learned very on how to be extremely independent, grounded, and humble all at the same time. I was the first to graduate high school out of my family. I was the first to go to college. I was the first to have multiple college degrees. I was the first. I actually, this is very interesting. So I was in the military, but I wasn't in the military. I did almost like the reserves in college.
Uh-huh.
And I ended up getting married. And at the time, my husband was not fond of guns and women in the military. So he was just like, I wanted to be an FBI agent. I actually went to school for criminology and communications when I finally graduated high school. I went to the University of Minnesota Duluth, and I majored in criminal justice. Well, it was at the time, it was called criminology and communications. And it was basically the study of criminals and, law.
Hmm.
And that's what I wanted to do. And like I said, I was always a fan of guns and, military. And I actually didn't even want kids at the time. And once we got married, his saying was, all I ever wanted to do was to be a father. So that led me into looking at my next greatest passion, which was culinary. I love cooking. And at that time, the Food Network was exploding in 2003, 2004. It was like the literally the championships of all championships. When you're watching the Food Network and Hell's Kitchen and all that good jazz. So I end up going to culinary school, and that's where I harness literally all of my discipline and just nothing comes without you putting in the effort. If you put in 100%, you will get 100%. You put in 50%, you'll get 50%. Whatever you put in it, whatever you put in to what you're doing is what you're going to get out. It's just the way the universe
Yes,
works,
it does.
right?
Uh-huh.
So my parents, my dad was not in my life until I was 22. He went to prison. We lost contact, and I found him 3 weeks after I got married. And I told my then husband at the time that I did not want to change my last name in case my dad ever came looking for me,
That's
because
smart.
I thought I was his last child at the time.
Right, right, right,
And I always wanted to reconnect with my father.
right.
So 3 weeks after I got married, I actually was looking online and did some digging, right? And I actually located him. So my dad is extreme. I literally go see my dad 3, 4 times a year. He lives in Vegas,
Hmm.
and we never lost contact since. But he has been a great pillar and just giving me advice and keeping me grounded at the same time. He's my only living biological parent, as you know.
Hmm.
And so I make it my business to spend time with him and to give to him and let him pour into me as I pour into him as a father, as he's a little regretful, but I tell him all the time, like, we have to forgive ourselves. After we turn 18, we have to forgive ourselves and we have to forgive our parents, right?
Yes,
Because they did the best that they knew how to do.
right,
Oprah talks about literally how you can't expect someone that only has 3 gallons to give you 10,
right, right, right.
right?
Uh-huh.
So I respected the fact that he had to live his life and my mom lived her life. And yeah, I wasn't in the best of circumstances. But after the age of 18, I make all of my own decisions. I can be who I want, when I want, how I want, on the terms. And no one can determine that. So I never take into consideration in my life, I was never taught that. No, you have the opportunity to learn now.
Hmm.
So even though my parents didn't teach me finance, I have the opportunity to learn now.
Right,
My parents did not teach me how to be an entrepreneur, but I learn now.
right.
And taking accountability for what you want in life is the key to
I
success.
agree.
Never pointing fingers, never making excuses. I tell my kids all the time, I do not I do not buy excuses.
Right.
I don't even put mine. I don't even accept mine.
Yep.
You either do it, or you
Yep.
don't. And right now, I have a 17-year-old, 15-year-old, and a 9-year-old that's going on 25. Okay,
Uh-huh.
I promise you.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But it's one of those things where I really teach them what you put into your life is what you're going to get out of it. If you make excuses for everything, that's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get excuses. And I make sure that I love on them, I spoil them, but at the same time, I make sure to give them lots of tough love because at the end of the day, when I'm no longer here, they will need to understand that life is what you make it
Yes.
and nothing is handed to you.
Well, it sounds like you're teaching them a very valuable lesson, especially today's age where, and maybe I'm just getting old because young people don't seem to want to work. They seem
No.
they seem to think that the world owes them something because they're entitled to stuff. And it's not just the young people. And I hesitate to get into this, but I will for a few minutes because since my tech guy here is from Wisconsin, he's probably a cheesehead. Uh, uh, do, do you follow football at all?
I do not,
Uh-huh.
but my kids do.
Well, I'm gonna say this for him, and we'll talk after the show. But it's like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's like people owe him stuff, man. Like he owns the team. I mean, it is typical young people, and what gets me, the media goes along with it. They all think the same way. They don't want to hold anybody
Mhm.
accountable for anything. So I'm so glad you're doing that. I was raised the same way. I tell any and everyone, if I didn't achieve something I set out to achieve, it's my fault. Has nothing to do with my history, has nothing to do with nobody else. It's what I did or didn't do and my decisions and things like that. But the issue is such a large part, especially our black youth, have been indoctrinated to make excuses and look
Yes.
elsewhere for blames for not achieving. And sadly, our leadership have been in many ways co-opted to give them that same message. And so, it's just so refreshing to hear that and hear someone out there teaching their kids a different way of approaching life. Um, you mentioned something earlier. I thought I heard you say that your husband did not like guns.
No, he's not. He never shot a gun up until about 3 years ago. I took him to Las Vegas for his birthday and we went to the gun range.
Right.
But that was his first time ever shooting a gun. And he he was like, I don't want to do that again. But yeah, no, he
Oh,
was
really?
not a fan of guns. And I'm exactly the opposite. I am a badass. Oh, I don't know if I can
No,
curse.
that's okay. That's okay. Look,
Yes,
uh,
yes. When it comes to guns, I exercise my rights. Let's just say that.
no, yeah, okay. Well, every once in a while we need to sneak in a word like that, I guess. And I don't want to. It's better if the guest sneak it in than me, you know. I got a brand to protect.
I tell people all the time that's literally my only form of adulting. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't club. I literally curse. That's my only. And trust me, I'm taking finishing school right now. So my finishing coach, Miss Misty, she gets on me all the time, like Misha, elegant lady does not curse, and I'm like, mm-hmm.
Yeah. Look, I'm not gonna get on my personal side as far as cursing is concerned. I might I might shock some people, but so that's good. No, but here's the thing. Did he know you had been in the military, associated with the military at all when he met you? And did he know that he didn't know that about you when he met you that you were military interested?
No, he knew. He just thought that it was a high school thing. So
Ah,
I was in JROTC the entire point of my high school. Then I joined my senior year,
okay.
and then I went off to college that also harnessed the same program that I
Right,
was in.
right, right.
So he knew, but he thought that it was like a thing that once I graduated, I was going to be done with. And I'm like, no, I want to do this full time. And he's just like,
Ah,
probably not.
well,
hmm
I spent.
and of course, when you're in a marriage, it's about compromising
Hmm.
and doing what's best for the unit versus what's best for you.
Right.
So I put my dreams on hold for a long time,
Mhm.
my goals and aspirations for a long time to curate and care and plant roots with my family.
Mhm.
And now that my kids are older, it's kind of my time. It's the same with
Right.
my mom. Before my mom, I took care of my mom for almost 10 years. As she was sick, she had a stroke a month after I got married,
Wow.
and I cared for her for 10 years of my life. So, being a wife, a mother, and a caregiver in my early 20s and 30s kept me out of a lot of, things that a lot of my peers probably got into.
Right, right,
So
right,
now at 37 years old, I don't like using, cliche terms, but I really feel like I'm just living my best life now.
right, right. And evidently you feel that way because your age just roll off of your tongue without even thinking about it and with pride and all that things like when women do that.
Yeah.
There's a certain confidence when you can do that. I'll share a little secret here too. I don't have. I'm not a regretful kind of person.
hmm
It either was intended to happen, God wasn't intended for. But I was in the Air Force ROTC for 3 days. My sophomore Yeah,
Oh
my
no.
sophomore year in college, and only 3 days. I had this idea of being a jet pilot, and
hmm
but I didn't know that you needed 20/20 visions for that. And
You do.
yeah, I know. I was so disappointed. And then I wouldn't get my stipend until my junior year. I'm like, okay, because at that time they were paying you $200 a month, and I had all kinds of little hustles going on that was consistent with my education. But I do kind of regret that. I was in built a lot of military systems though to help the military, and I'm proud of that. And I just came to like a lot of those guys. So now, uh, what has been the key? What do you attribute your enthusiasm and being goal oriented and hard work and attitude and all those things that have to come together to give you the best chance of succeeding because success is never guaranteed. How do you what who or what do you attribute all this umph you got to get things done.
Mental health. Two, consistency. Three, passion. Do what you love. Do what you love and do what you want to do. These days, I do not do anything, and when I say that, I mean that with a passion. I do not do anything I do not love or enjoy. If it does not bring me peace, if it does not bring me happiness, I don't do it.
Wow, that's a lot of uh, strength and courage, even because people tend to put a lot of pressure on you to do things that they want you to do. I mean, well, no, and I shouldn't say pressure. I shouldn't say pressure though, because
No, that is their problem,
right,
not mine.
right,
Even when I decided to get a divorce, a lot of people called me brave and this and that. And I said, well, if you're not happy, what does it matter?
right, right, right,
If I'm depressed, what does it matter?
right, right,
You cannot do anything when you're depressed.
right,
You will lay in bed all day and be sad and accomplish nothing because you're depressed.
right, right.
But when you're happy, when you feel like $1 million, guess what?
Yeah,
You have the power of Superman. You think you're Superman.
right,
You wake up feeling like you're the sugar honey iced tea every day, okay? And when you feel like that, passion comes, confidence comes, exuberance comes. You want to be your best self. When you're your best self, I'm telling you, what you give to the world is so much more valuable than a dollar amount, than your service, than anything. When you are confident in who you are,
right,
and you're mentally healthy,
right.
you can't be stopped.
Well, you mentioned the word confident there, and I've always been confident, and it doesn't help that other people had confidence in me too. I mean, in fact, we were just brought up as children to be confident. I always like to tell the story of the men that raised us. My dad might get up in the morning and say, "Son, we're gonna go out and put a roof on today." And I'm not put a roof on it in my life, and then we got to climb up on the house and all that good stuff, and these ladders and way up there. And but you know what? He would just look at me and give me about a minute worth of instruction and walk away. And like I know you can do this. Go do it. And that was always great. And once again, I was just surrounded by such a wealth of positiveness. In fact,
Mm.
uh, I haven't had a bad day in my life, and I try to tell people I had about a near a perfect childhood as you could have. And, and, and you know the beautiful part of that. In fact, I don't try to say I had as I say I had a perfect childhood. Perfect childhood. That doesn't mean that everything went well. What
Hmm.
that meant to me was I was prepared for anything that life brought my way. And I knew how to deal with
Mm.
it and put it in perspective and move on and had a right attitude about things. And so that's what I'm thankful for. It's just I've just been blessed like that. It sounds like you had a lot of those things going for you. Now, we chatted a little bit on the phone. I think it was yesterday, and a lot of great. We had a lot of stuff in common, and I'm not even sure we should share this with our audience. So, Misha, if you don't tell, I won't tell. So we're going to tell. But uh, you indicated that you were not a big social media fan. I'm not either, much to the chagrin of the people around me. Look, I'm an old software engineer, and
Yeah.
I was never interested in working on a computer. I was interested in getting
Hmm.
computers to do work for people. And
For me, right?
yeah, when I come home, the last thing I want to do is get on a computer, and I'm not really into a lot of chatting and stuff anyway. I just want to chill.
Yeah.
Uh, even though I was not a big fan of social media and a lot of other things, I understand that you was kind of like the same way, but like me, I mean, you can either resist or you can join. Uh,
Hmm.
and what changed my mind, I think I heard a gentleman say that uh, uh, th- there was hardly any 200,000 any novels who sold 200,000 copies one year. And he said I can get on the internet and have 2 million people listening to me, and that's what kind of changed my mind. But I'm being poor, dragging and screaming to this internet, and like you shared with me, I'm just not interested in a lot of stuff that's going on out there.
Well, no, because I feel like it's superficial and people should not have access to everything about me
Right.
with a click of a finger.
Exactly.
If you look at my life, I've always picked things that was extremely private, but yet I hold majority of the weight in what I do, right? What I mean by that is, as an FBI agent, no one knows who you are, but you literally control the government, in that field,
Right. Right. Right.
when it comes to being an executive chef, no one sees the executive chef, but you're the one creating the menu. You're ordering the food. You're hiring. You're firing. You're behind the scenes, but you run the show.
Right.
Um, I love running my show. But I do not like being the face of what I do, because I can be very bold and I can be very upfront. And I realize, and I'm very transparent on a lot of things. And I've learned that that's not very healthy in the world of the real world.
What?
So
Hmm.
I try and shelter myself and protect myself by being the boss, but not being the face of what I do precisely. And with that being said, I mean, it goes into, I don't like to be inauthentic. And sometimes when you are the face or when you are in the public eye, you have to be inauthentic, because
Yeah.
you have to, I call it being a politician.
Right.
You have to be a politician.
Yeah.
And I'm an Aquarius. I don't know if you guys know about astrology or anything like that.
I know a little
I
bit about
love
it.
people.
Uh huh.
I love people, but I'm also extremely a recluse. I love being by myself. I love reading. I love exercising. I love meditating. I love educating myself. I say I would probably be the person in college at 97 years old, cursing out the professor.
Right.
Just because I am an avid learner. But I do not like being in the face of people, because I am very transparent and very real.
Well, we have a lot in common because even though I've been out in the public eye, and when I'm out in the public, I'm very friendly and talkative. I'm really a kind
Yes.
of private, quiet person, and I'd
Mm-hmm.
prefer other people to be out front. If it were left up
Yeah.
to me, the issues I'm trying to address, they will get addressed without anyone knowing who I am or what I am or anything like that. So I'm just interested.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm just interested in solving the issues. I mean, so many of the people I work with, they want to get credit for it, and they want to be in front of the microphones and
I
stuff.
let them. I let them. I love it.
Yeah,
Take all the credit. I
yeah, that's what I am. Yeah,
love it. I really
yeah.
do.
I don't care who gets credit as long as it get done. In fact, in business, and I know quite a few entrepreneurs. I've had some business myself. People are always worried about someone stealing their ideas, and I'm like, look, they can steal an idea, but I still think I can do it, pull it off, and they can't. Or if they can pull it off and solve the issues that I want solved, I'm happy. And it doesn't have to be me. So I appreciate that too. Say, Misha, we're gonna have to do a part two. And my we struck out on our first part two, but we aren't gonna strike out with. I want to have you back on probably next week for part two because I think we just scratched the surface because you are doing so many things that
Oh, thank you.
it's hard for me to take an inventory of. And there's so much stuff going on there. And in fact, to be honest with you, I'm wondering how is she doing this? And I want to, on part two, dig into a little bit more. How in the heck is she doing this? Number one, and then number two, what's your future plans? And you've given some great messages to our young people already because I always like to encourage them.
Yes.
Yeah, I just know. And by the way, and the reason I live in the hood because I just know one sentence from one person, and they speaking with confidence to you, and like they have confidence in you, can change people's lives. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
constantly be putting myself in the situation where I'm running into young people who and like I say, they've been programmed to have such a negative view of that situation in life. And I'm like you. I'm here to say you can be anything you want to be. and I challenge you to
Absolutely.
prove me more wrong. Now, within
Hmm.
reason, I mean, you're not going to be a football player or whatever, and you don't have the physical talents for it. But I mean, so that's what the message I want to get across to people because that's been my life experience. I have never at any time in my life ever felt or let the thought cross my mind that I cannot be whatever I want to be. And I'm not listening to anybody else, and I'm just thankful that the people that raised me brought me up that way. So here's the thing, Misha, we're gonna end today on this, and we're gonna pick it up because I want to get into some of the other things you said, and I'll probably call you in between and pick up a few more things. And I know you got a busy day today. Uh,
I do.
Go out and keep conquering and kicking butt. I'm not gonna use your word. You got to go out there. And kick.
I'm sorry. I did not mean that.
Nah.
I should have asked that question ahead of time. It's okay.
Nah, I
I'm
loved it.
sorry. My
I loved
apologies.
it. I hesitate to say this, but sometimes I'm kind of leery of people who don't ever swear. I don't know why. Okay. I'm kind of leery of. Maybe it's just my background.
You
Don't
know
ever
what?
swear. I mean,
It was the weirdest thing. I never used to curse, never ever ever until I start working at this particular job. I'm not going to say what job it
uh,
is, and I was the boss,
uh,
and I had to cut up a little bit. I
uh,
had to shake my squareness off a little bit
uh,
and
uh,
let you know.
uh.
So that's kind of where it started. So it started extremely, extremely late in life, and now I'm curving it off a little bit.
Okay, okay. And, and by the way, I read somewhere where I think you worked at a casino. Want to talk about that a little
I
bit,
did.
Rashad? You've done a lot of things though, and just where you see yourself going in the future. So keep up the enthusiasm, keep up the smile, keep up the hard work, keep up
Thank
the
you.
drive, and let's keep working and make this world a better place. I just remember when we talked, and you're like me too. Money is not your main motivation, and it has
No.
never been mine either. And I ended with this. I got a good business associate who told me, uh, I, I'm good at chasing money. I've been chasing money all my life, and without even thinking, I'm like, you know what? I've never chased money, and I've had money all my life.
That's the key.
Yeah,
That's the key to success.
it is.
Do not chase money.
Yeah,
Chase solving a problem or
exactly.
helping people, and money will come to you. Trust me.
Ex-
There's so many streams of income that I didn't even think I can actually have.
Right.
When you stop thinking about it and stop chasing it, it will come to you.
So,
Just do the right thing. Be a good person.
so we're gonna end it kind of like on a spiritual note, and I'm gonna talk about my Deacon Holly. And this is when I was very young, started out in the corporate world. And we was just hanging out in his backyard, barbecuing, the deacons at the church and us young guys. And he made the statement, I know 1,000 ways of making money. And as soon as he said that, I never worried about losing a job or anything in my life. I'm like, you know what? He's right. And that's how it has worked. So once again, have a great day. By the way, are you a Cowboys fan or are you still Vikings fan now?
No, I am not a sports fan
Oh, that's right. Okay,
whatsoever.
okay.
What
That's
what
how
did
you
he
get so
say?
much stuff
He said
done.
yeah, he said instead of putting your time and energy and cheering for someone else, cheer
Right.
for yourself.
Well, it got to a point in my life where I realized those guys, whether they win or lose, they're gonna hop in that $300,000 car. They're gonna go to their $2 million mansion, and I'm just wasting my time watching them. So, hey, good way to end it. I'll see you next week.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks.